Hey, what's up guys? Brian Kelly here from Zombie Guitar. Today's video we're going to talk about triads. So I'm making this video in response to an email I got. So the email goes like this. It says, "Hey Brian, I've been looking at your vids and very impressed by the way you explain things. It's simple, honest, and easy to understand. I had a browse through the website and was just about to pull the trigger, but I noticed that there doesn't seem to be any content on triads. Have I missed this, or is this something that you have in the pipeline?" Now my response to this question was, I'd estimate that roughly 50% or more of all the content that I put out is about triads. Triads are the backbone of all music. Any lesson about chord tone targeting, arpeggios, layer 2, etc. is about triads. I think you would actually have a very difficult time finding a lesson on the site that is not about triads. So in my response, I said that about 50% of all the content that I put out is in some way about triads. I should have actually said 95%, maybe 98%. Pretty much every single video that I put out, the core message in some way, shape, or form, the core message is focus on the triads, all right? The thing about this word triads, it's one of those keywords. As a YouTuber, you kind of learn like what keywords tend to get more views. Things like pentatonic, caged, modes, arpeggios. Those are words that tend to attract more views on YouTube. Triads is actually one of those words as well. I haven't been using that keyword enough in my titles. That's my own fault. But just because I haven't been using the word triads in my titles does not mean that that is not the core message of every single video that I put out. So we're going to go through this video. First, I'm going to explain to you the 4 main types of triads, and then I'm going to give you 7 different examples of how triads basically just apply to everything. So the 4 main types of triads are major triads, minor triads, augmented triads, and diminished triads. So if you listen to popular music, radio music, rock, classic rock, pop, country, just most of the stuff that you hear on the radio, for the most part, it's going to be major and minor triads. Augmented triads and diminished triads, they're still used, but just not nearly as often as the major and minor triads. So just for the purpose of this video, we're just going to focus on the major and minor triads. Another term for major and minor triads is just simply major chords and minor chords. It means the exact same thing. All right. So that if we talk about major chords and minor chords in any video, then we're talking about triads. All right. So that is how common this triad thing is. So let me give you 7 examples. So that demo that I played in the beginning there, that was all just major and minor chords. You could also say it was major and minor triads. There was nothing else aside from that. We were just using the triads. So the first chord or the first triad was an A minor chord. The notes that make up that chord are A, C, and E. That is the A minor triad, A, C, E. The next chord I played was a C major triad, otherwise known as a C major chord. It's just 3 notes. It spans across 5 strings. Some of those notes are repeated more than once, but it's just C, E, G. That is the C major triad. The next chord was a G major chord, otherwise known as a G major triad. Again, it's just 3 notes. It spans across 6 strings, but it's just the notes G, B, and D. The next chord was an F major chord. Again, this spans across all 6 strings, but it's just 3 notes. It's an F major triad. It's F, A, and C. And then there was also a D minor chord thrown in there, otherwise known as a D minor triad. The D minor triad is the 3 notes, D, F, and A. So all of those chords, those are just basic open chords, but they're just triads. So instead of playing A minor to C major, to G major, to F major, knowing that each of those chords is just 3 notes, maybe some of those notes are repeated more than once, but each of those chords is just 3 notes and that's it. Knowing that the A minor chord is an A, C, and E, that's what makes up an A minor triad, so I can go A, C, and E. And then for the C major chord, I could just play the C, E, and G. And then for the G major chord, I could play the G, B, and D. And then for the F major chord, I could play the F, A, and C. So playing the exact same notes. So whether I'm playing these 3 notes as just a chord, an open chord as you probably know it, or whether it's called arpeggiating it, I'm just playing each individual note one by one, you're still basically playing the same 3 notes. So as we go further through this lesson, you're going to see how those 3 notes really are the backbone of everything. Alright, so I've been playing my open chords for a while. Now it's time to start using the rest of this guitar. And we can just take this same concept of the fact that these chords are just 3 notes, they're just the triads, and just play the same 3 notes in other spots of the guitar. So maybe I want to play an A minor chord like this. It's still just the notes A, C, and E. And then for the C major chord, maybe I want to play it like this. Again, it spans more than just 3 strings, but it's still just the notes C, E, and G. Some of those notes are just repeated more than once. For the G major chord, maybe I want to play it like this. It's just the notes G, B, and D. And then for the F major chord, rather than playing it down here, which is the one we already did, which we've already determined was still just 3 notes, it's just the notes F, A, and C. Maybe I want to play the F major chord up here like this. It's still just the notes F, A, and C. Alright, so 2 different ways to play the F major chord right there. It's just the notes F, A, and C. D minor chord, maybe I'll play the D minor chord here. It's just the notes D, F, and A. Alright, so now I can take each of those bar chords that I just played, and instead of playing the full 6-string version of these bar chords, or 5-string version of the bar chords if the bar chords were rooted on the A string, I can also just play little pieces of those chords too. I just want to get the triad notes in there, the 3 notes that make up the triad. So instead of playing this for an A minor chord, which is just the notes A, C, and E, maybe I just want to play the A here, the C here, and the E here. So that's fine, A, C, E. So that counts as an A minor chord. For the C major chord, instead of playing this full 6-string version like this, which is just the notes C, E, and G, with some of those notes being repeated more than once, maybe I just want to play the C here, the E here, and the G here. Alright, so there's a triad there, C, E, G. That doesn't mean that this isn't a triad. This is still a triad too. I'm just playing a little piece of it and just playing the C, E, and G 1 time each. So that's a triad. For the G major, down here, the notes G, B, and D. Maybe I'm just going to play the G, B, and D there. So there's a little G major triad. For the F major chord, which I played up here, maybe I just want to play the high 3 strings. We have an F here, we have an A here, we have a C here. Alright, so that's an F major triad. And then for the D minor triad, instead of playing the 5-string version of this bar chord, the notes D, F, and A, maybe I just want to play each instance of D, F, and A once. So I'll play a D here, an F here, and an A here. So there's a D minor triad. Alright, so maybe I don't want to do so much jumping around. You know, maybe I don't want to start here for an A minor chord, and then jump all the way up here to play a C major chord, and then jump all the way down here to play a G major chord, then come all the way up here to play an F major chord. It's a lot of kind of jumping around the fretboard. Maybe I just want to kind of confine all my chords to one single area of the guitar. Now the thing to understand is that every single chord is available right underneath your fingertips at every single possible location of the fretboard. I can play every single chord you could possibly think of right here. I can play every single chord you could possibly think of right here, right here, right here, right here, right here. It doesn't matter where you're at on the fretboard. Every single chord is available right underneath your fingertips. So for example, an A minor chord. The notes that make up an A minor chord are A, C, and E. In other words, we're saying the A minor triad is the notes A, C, and E. There are A's, C's, and E's all over the fretboard. So just pick an A, pick a C, pick an E. Whatever shape that happens to form, that's an A minor chord. That's an A minor triad. So if I wanted to play that entire chord progression that we just played in the beginning, A minor. So maybe I want to play the A minor here. Maybe I want to play the C major right here. Maybe I want to play the G major right here like this. Maybe I want to play the F major like this. The second half of the progression, maybe I'll play the C major here, followed by a G major, followed by a D minor. I'll play it like this. Then I'll play an F major like this. Now, if you're thinking to yourself at this point, hey man, you're going too fast, how am I supposed to find all those chord shapes? That's not really the purpose of this video. I have like 300 videos that you could watch, and like the point of this video is just to show you that triads are everywhere. Every single concept that I talk about, every single concept that I teach, the cage system especially, that's how you find all these shapes, by having an understanding of the cage system, right? So how did I find all these shapes right here? I was like, oh, okay, well, that A minor chord is in the E shape, and then that C major chord is in the G shape, and then the G major chord is coming from the C shape. The F major chord is coming from the C shape as well. So it doesn't matter. I could pick this spot right here. Where am I at? All the chords are found right there. It's just what is the nearest available cage shape that is found right underneath your fingertips at that location for each of those chords. That's what the cage system helps you do. So if you want to learn more about that, check out my lessons on the cage system. I'll link one below, my super in-depth 45-minute caged lesson. But the point of this is triads are everywhere. Another thing you can do is you can take a very seemingly complex song that has like crazy chords in it. We see nines and sevens and susses and stuff like that, which, you know, you may not understand at this point in time. You could take all that stuff and you can just eliminate the sevens and nines and susses and all that stuff, and you can just look at the triad portion of each chord and then play that, and then the song is still going to be fully recognizable. So let me just give a quick example. I'll use Hotel California here. I did a lesson on Hotel California, and I did the non-capoed version. I did a capoed version of the song as well. It's on the Zombie Guitar website. I don't have that one on YouTube, but I wanted to put the non-capoed version for the intro on YouTube just because there's so many other lessons that have the capoed version on YouTube. I just wanted to be the one guy that has a non-capoed version of the song. Either way, regardless of whether you use a capo or you don't use a capo, these are the chords. So the first chord is a B minor chord, followed by an F sharp dominant 7 chord, followed by an A sus2 chord. This is actually an A sus2 over E chord because the lowest note in the chord is the note E as opposed to the note A. The next chord is this E9 chord. It's like this. It's a little tricky to play. The next chord is a G major chord. This is the C shape of the G major chord. The next chord is a D major chord. This is just played in the G shape. The next chord is an E minor 7 chord. And then the final chord is that F sharp dominant 7 chord again. So obviously that stuff gets a lot easier when you slap a capo on the 7th fret there, and you're playing easier shapes. You don't have to worry about barring the 7th fret, but those are still the actual chords, all right? You can eliminate the 7, you can eliminate the 9, you can eliminate the susses and all that stuff, and just look at the triad portion of each chord, and the song is still going to be fully recognizable. So first chord, B minor. Second chord, F sharp major. Next chord, A major. Next chord, E major. G major. D major. E minor. F sharp major. It sounds just like the song. If you played that chord progression, no one's going to say, I have no clue what that is. Everyone's going to know it's Hotel California. It's just you're just taking the color away. You're taking the color away. That's it. So you can always reduce these complex chord progressions and just play the triads, and the song will be fully recognizable. So let's stick with the Hotel California example, and we're just going to play through that chord sequence, but we're just going to play arpeggios of each of the chords, and I'm going to use the same arpeggio shapes. So this is going to be a lot of jumping around. So of course you can always confine your playing to one single area, but just to kind of get this point across, I just want to show you this. Alright, so you can still recognize it as the chord progression from Hotel California just by playing that. But what I did was I just arpeggiated each of the chords. And I was only arpeggiating the triad portion of the chords. I was excluding the 7s, I was excluding the 9s, I was excluding the color tones. I was just focusing on major arpeggios or minor arpeggios. Major triads, major chords, minor chords. This stuff is all It all means one and the same thing. Alright, so I know I said I was only going to give you 7 examples, but as I started recording this video, I decided I wanted to give you an 8th one. So all that jumping around I was just doing with those arpeggios, you can do that, of course. But just as we showed how instead of playing these bar chords, instead of jumping around all these different spots, you can always confine your playing to just like one little area. The same is true for arpeggios. The same is true for chord tone targeting. When I say chord tone targeting, I mean you're focusing on the triad notes of each underlying chord. That's not to say to ignore the other notes, like if there is color tones added to these chords, like if you come across an E9 chord or something like that, that's not to say that the 9's not important. It is. It's just the triad portion of the chord is the most important part of it. So when I'm talking about chord tone targeting and stuff like that, I'm saying focus on the triad notes of the underlying chord. That's the thing that's really going to let you know, oh, that's an E major chord. Got it. So again, you can see that my playing was kind of confined to this little area right here, and I was heavily arpeggiating each of the underlying chords in the rhythm section, and it was just triads. That's what I was doing. If it was a major chord, I was playing a major arpeggio. If it was a minor chord, I was playing a minor arpeggio. I just happened to confine my playing to one little area. So that's always possible too. So I could go on for days and talk about triads and how important triads are and how triads are found in every single one of my lessons, despite the fact that it doesn't necessarily say the word triad in the title of the video. But I think you get the point here. So after you know this now, knowing this about triads, knowing that triads are everywhere, if you do happen to go and watch one of my older videos, you're going to see, oh, he is talking about triads. Oh, in that video he's talking about triads too. Oh, triads there, triads there. I'm always talking about triads. Triads are everywhere. All right, so I think I've stressed this point enough. I'm going to end this video here. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.